Hello, everyone, and happy mid-holidays. Disney Plus, they don't rest, so neither do we. They threw a new Star Wars show at us here right as the end of the year is upon us with the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So I'm Eric, Kim is here, and we are going to talk about this first episode. Full spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, you should go check it out and come back and watch this. All right, full spoilers for episode 1 or chapter 1 of the Book of Boba Fett. 3, 2, 1. We're in the spoiler zone. Kim, let's talk about this show. This has been an interesting thing because by premiering when it is, I don't want to. It's a little bit of a low key premiere for a Star Wars show because by the nature of when they put it out, they didn't even do much press for it. But they know everyone's home. It's not like they're burying it because they know this is actually kind of a good time to put something out when no one's going anywhere. But we didn't know a lot about this show, except that it was about Boba Fett. What did you think of the first episode here?
Well, I really enjoyed it. I loved the strong Western overtones brought by Robert Rodriguez, who's showrunner and directed the episode. He's done contemporary Westerns, and that shows in this. And I love that this chapter tells in very few words. There isn't a whole lot of dialogue. The story of this kind of machine of a man, not literally a machine, although a clone, who survives near-death experience after near-death experience with, determination and strength and brawn and brains. So we get this already this kind of picture of this Boba Fett forming that we didn't know fully from the original trilogy. Of course, we've learned a bit more about over the years, but I overall I liked the flashbacks and the cuts to the present day. I liked the connections in feel to the Mandalorian, but also the Robert Rodriguez touch and classic Star Wars nods.
We should mention Rodriguez directing it. Jon Favreau is the writer of this first episode, Stranger in a Strange Land, and is credited as a creator. It looks like Filoni might not be actively involved in this, but there's so much stuff happening. I'm sure he's very involved with the Ahsoka show, so it makes sense that they're probably splitting up a bit as they're doing so many spinoffs. I also like this premiere. I am curious of sort of the overall arc of the show because that's the one thing we don't really get by the end of the premiere. It seems safe to presume flashbacks are going to be a big part of the whole thing, that we're going to fill in basically 5 years, I think we have from Return of the Jedi to the Mandalorian. And it's so interesting, right? Boba Fett is like so famous for looking cool, but we didn't really know a lot about him as an actual guy. I like this too, as far as like a guy who the will to live very strong in this sucker. And I definitely like the look at the inside of the Sarlacc pit.
Yes.
And what does it mean to be dissolving for 1,000 years?
Thank heaven for Mandalorian armor.
Thank heaven for Mandalorian armor and a nearby stormtrooper who we did not see get eaten in Return of the Jedi, but obviously it stumbled, I should say sand trooper, stumbled in there, and his breathing apparatus helped our boy Boba.
I did want to say, check his pulse before you steal his oxygen supply.
He's a stormtrooper. You gotta be merciless there.
Fair enough.
I do think it's the subtle things. They went against both expectations, I think, just because we'd expect it no matter what, and because once upon a time in comic books that are not canon anymore, Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit with his jetpack. Had nothing to do with his escape. Turns out it was a bunch of punching and flamethrowing that got him out of there.
Very cool.
But very cool, yeah.
It reminded me inside that Sarlacc of Dagobah, actually. It was all just slimy and dark.
That's true. I did like the little flashlight he had there on his antenna. So I like the flashback stuff a lot. In present day is where I'm kind of still like, I'm surprised there wasn't a bigger hook, because it's really the premiere is kind of like a day in the life of Boba Fett, crime lord, as we kind of see what's going on for him, and just this little bit of someone tries to kill him. We assume maybe they were going to try to kidnap him, but it makes sense as the new big boss. People would be gunning for him. So there was no big reveal or no like big moment there for the future. That surprised me because I liked what I was, I liked the experience of watching this episode, but I was surprised there wasn't something sort of more to grab you. Did you think it was lacking in that regard?
Yeah, well, yes and no. It wasn't obvious, but it sowed the seeds for some intrigue, and there's some question marks over some characters now. So, and who I presume will become adversaries or shady as we get further into the series. One of which is the mayor, Mock Shays, who sent his major domo.
Yeah.
So his parting shot was basically, my boss might not be as reasonable as me.
right
And may send someone else. So we've yet to see how deep that rivalry goes. And then also Jennifer Beals's Garza Fwip seems a little bit shady too. So and it's Jennifer Beals, so I presume she'll have a bigger role to play.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's a fun, I mean, like, I think that's kind of like an aspect of Star Wars that's always fun. She's the one running the local club. And yeah, you get that she's like a power player in town, in a Easter egg filled club where Max Rebo is playing the keyboard, which was great. And alive. The dealer is an RX droid, like the one that Rex from Star Tours and Galaxy's Edge. So yeah, I hope to see more of Jennifer Beals for sure, because I like her, but I also like those kind of who knows what side they're playing, right?
I think Max Rebo has had a keyboard upgrade.
One would hope, but it looks like the band broke up. So
yeah, sad times. Infighting happens.
It's true.
Couldn't agree.
They should do the Beatles Get Back, but for Max Rebo band. Yeah. I'd watch the hell out of that. I think the other question I have that I hope this show answers, and I think the flashbacks will, but I kind of want to know, why does Boba even want to be a crime lord? Like, he was a bounty hunter. He had a crappy few years, to be sure. But what made him decide, I'm going to go back to Jabba's palace and take that over? I think that's sort of a little bit of a lingering question mark for me. I don't know if that might be me. What do you think about, like, do you want to kind of know more about why he wants to take on all this more responsibility?
Yeah, it does seem strange, but he is intent on ruling with respect and not fear. Maybe he's trying to kind of make things better from the inside. Turning over a new leaf and helping the small man.
Right. Well, he definitely, we get this whole idea that he doesn't want to be the same kind of leader as Boba, and we presume Bib Fortuna emulated Boba, like the whole, like, oh, you don't want to be carried through the streets of Mos Espa.
And it establishes, it's at pains to establish that he's a kind, not, or at least he's not a cruel man. He doesn't kill needlessly. He doesn't want to torture anybody. And he feels this kinship with the Tuscan youngling that's really subtle, and I like the way they do that. And that it kind of mirrors his situation and his father's situation. I presume this young Tuscan raider. Maybe we'll learn more about him and whether he might be a foundling.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing that The Mandalorian opened up that this show is clearly delving further into is just the idea of actually following the Tusken Raiders and developing them and making them much more, fully rounded and sometimes even sympathetic characters than they were ever in any of the feature films. So I definitely appreciate that aspect of it. Although they are not kind to their prisoners when they first take them. They just beat the hell out of him for no reason.
This is true. They dragged him, didn't they, behind them on a bantha?
They dragged him, and not in the Twitter sense, just like they fully went for it.
No, they probably did that too, to be fair.
Yeah, they just mercilessly tore him down. Really personal stuff. This definitely, I'm seeing is splitting people, and I see some of the comments, Ryan, you put here from the AMA, like from the chat. Stephen Stevens saying, after this first episode, I think I'm going to wait until it's all out. Very slowly paced, in my opinion. I don't know what the show even is supposed to be about at this point. I mean, I think that I do want to know, like, I'm fine with it being like a character study of Boba Fett, but I think we need some more context, you know. I think that's where I oddly think they hurt themselves by doing so little promotion for the show, because we kind of just didn't even know, like, what is this show beyond like Boba. So yeah, what do you think, Kim, as far as like, you know, what, I guess that's a big question, but what's the point besides more cool Star Wars?
I understand that viewpoint, definitely, but I'm a bit more patient. Maybe I'm happy to wait and see what unfolds. Maybe what they could have done, should have done, was release 2 episodes. Maybe the second episode will give us more of an idea of the direction.
I wonder the same thing. It feels like that might have helped. It's just, look, we can't help but compare this to The Mandalorian, because right now it's the only 2 shows we have. Eventually we'll have more. Plus, this is a direct spinoff, and I think by its nature, it's going to visually look so similar.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, the end of the first Mandalorian episode had the holy crap, that's a baby Yoda. What's going on? And the end of this episode had Boba Fett is given some water in a flashback. It can't have the same like forward momentum, and that's okay. I just kind of want to know, what is the approach to this? Because I'm not even someone. I don't think every show has to have like a crazy, like twisty turny plot. It just, I think we need those 2 second episode to kind of get a better handle on like what is going to be an episode of this series.
Yeah, one thing that this episode reminded me of was the Crate Dragon episode of The Mandalorian, though not as maybe not as good, not as big a scale. Those sequences were great, but obviously we had this big creature come out of the sand, Ray Harryhausen style.
Yes.
And yes, my mind immediately went to that episode from The Mandalorian.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned that creature, because it was a fun creature. The 4-armed, it was, it's a fun sequence where it seems like it's going to be a fossil, and then nope, it's alive and crashes out. And not only did the design evoke Harryhausen, but you could kind of tell, even though I'm sure it was done with digital effects, they wanted it to look a little jittery and almost look like it moved like stop motion. I thought that was pretty cool what they did there with that creature.
Yeah, so there you go. There's the picture. Remind me of the scorpions from Clash of the Titans.
And, a little bit of the scorpions, a little bit of the kraken, and then you could feel, and of course, Harryhausen himself influencing a lot of the early stop motion stuff, like the Rancor in the Star Wars trilogy. And so I like that a lot. Like I remember them talking about that even when they did the digital Yoda, that they were like, they realized they had to add things to digital Yoda, like his ears flopping about, that happened because he was a puppet. And it's like, he has to look, he has to like mimic something that isn't digital. So I thought that was really fun what they did there. I'm looking at some of the other chat stuff. Let's see. Little, is it Lieutenant? I don't know. Little Buddha. I figured it out. I got there. Says, I think we're seeing character building and a redemption arc. I think, like, again, we don't know enough about Boba. I mean, we know he was a bounty hunter and he captured Han Solo, and he, again, we've joked before, Kim, I think, about the no disintegrations line at Empire. So redemption to an extent, but I think it's just more like contextualization. Like, what was this guy's life like? Do you think we're going to see like redemption here, or is it more just like, let's figure out what makes him tick?
Let's figure out what makes him tick. I think he's already kind of redeemed from The Mandalorian. I think we'll dive into what makes him tick, and why he wants to become this crime lord, as you asked earlier. So
yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, it's just like, I don't think he did it on a whim. So we'll find out. Alan Preslin asks, will we see Mando again in this show? Obviously, we'll see Mando again in season 3. Will we see Mando again, or anyone else from the Star Wars franchise in this series? What do you think, Kim? We got a couple little ones here.
Yeah, we saw Max Rebo.
Yes.
I wondered if the guy that they were watching get raided was Cobb Vanth from a distance. Did anyone else think that?
I didn't think it was him, but I also think that Cobb Vanth popping up on this show seems like a very possible thing, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah, if it wasn't him, yes, agreed.
Oh, by the way, we should talk about this show. A funny thing they did on this show that continues a strange but welcome to me thread of taking what we do in the shadows people and having them voice droids. Because Matt Berry voiced 88, which is the white droid, not a protocol droid, they need one, who was in the palace. He was actually from Return of the Jedi, that character, but he never spoke. He was just torturing a poor gonk droid in that movie. So yeah, we got Taika has a droid. This is like a thing. The first episode of these shows will have someone from What We Do in the Shadows voice a droid. I welcome it. Did you enjoy Matt Berry now being part of Star Wars?
Yes, very much. In fact, I didn't recognize his voice at first, and now I had to go back. Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, you know, and droids are a good source of humor usually, and Matt Berry's funny, so I hope that we'll get some comedy from him in the show. During this sequence, I wanted to. Was that a Wookiee pelt that the Trandoshan offered, or just? Did you think
it is? Because I think I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I believe, you know, that is a thing from Star Wars lore, is that they're always after Wookiees. I think I might be making that up. If so, Wikipedia, come after me. But I feel like that's a thing. I think that's a thing. So I have a feeling you're probably right about that.
There he is.
Yeah,
it made my heart sink a little bit.
I know. Don't show that to Chewie. Xenohour says, I think this is a fun start, and I'm glad they're getting most of the past out of the way. Mm-hmm. I guess I think my question is, are they getting most of the past? I mean, again, I do think it was, I was surprised the premiere was structured. First, we didn't know flashbacks would be a part of it at all. Once it was, I was surprised that they bookended the episode, like that we went out on a flashback and not like a huge reveal moment, just to like, here's how we got sort of level of respect with the Tuscans. Do you expect, based on this premiere, you know, the flashbacks will be a healthy part? You know, what do you think the balance might be going forward?
It's really hard to say. I am 50-50 on that, but I've enjoyed the flashback sequences very much, and I would embrace them going forward, and I think it can work.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that I expect them, based on this premiere, to be part of the entire series. I hope that maybe they can be flexible, like that maybe there's an episode that's, you know, the balance is never exactly the same. Because this premiere, I felt like it was about 50-50, maybe even tilted a minute or so into the flashbacks favor, just because it was the first 12 minutes, I know, of the episode. I did check that. And then certainly we went back to a long flashback, extended flashback at the end. I'm totally fine with more flashbacks. And I think if you are going to, it's 5 years later, we need to, because we need to know, like, why the hell, you know, I think we joked about this with the Mandalorian season 2. Why did it take him so long to go for that armor? You know, yeah. He is healthy at this point. He is the Tusken Raiders are respecting him. Doesn't mean they'll let him go. But I do want to know, like, man, that he took a while to go for that armor.
Maybe he was so beat up. He was in the Bacta pod for so long. He was caught up in this reverie of flashbacks, and that's where he's been.
That's right. Maybe he just was partying with the Tuscans.
Yeah, maybe.
Had some very good times with them. Would you think, Kim, of the action in the premiere? There's really one. Well, that's not true, because the flashbacks give us some more too, like with the Harryhausen creature. But then we get the sequence where the guys attack Boba and Fennec, and which leads to a very sort of parkour type rooftop chase. What do you think of the action in this episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was quite a pedestrian welcome to the action in the series, but that's not to say it was underwhelming. It was perfectly serviceable. That fight in the round with the ninja style assassins was quite cool. There was some cool moments. You know, Fennec got to do some stuff. She threw one of the guys with the stick. She speared him and threw him, and he fell onto the shield and presumably fried. And and we got a Wilhelm scream then as well, which
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. and I yeah.
What you gonna say?
I love the bit where she kind of just like a ferret climbed up that wall as well before she went parkour across the rooftops.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite part too, because I thought, the fight with the guys, I liked the shields, but I thought that like it was a little pedestrian, like the actual one-on-one fighting in that moment. The parkour kind of threw me because it's just a funny thing that we're always going to be like parkour, and always make me think of Punisher Warzone, the missile launcher. But there's been, but also look, like Casino Royale and a million movies have shown that those sequences can be fun. And it was different for Star Wars, and Star Wars has been around for so long, and we're getting so much Star Wars, they have to mix it up. So rooftop chase with some parkour, why not?
Yeah, there were some cool moments. There was the bit where they all went around the grabbed onto the drain pipe, the pipe, whatever it was that was going down and swung around. That was cool.
It was just, I just was surprised that that's kind of like the last thing we get in the present of the show is she captures that guy, but we don't see him being I mean, obviously next week we'll get him interrogated. We'll start to get some answers about who is targeting Boba. But we didn't get any of that here yet. They definitely, I think your suggestion that maybe they should have shown the first two feels more and more to me like maybe that would have been the right thing here. L. Oliver just notes that Boba is nicer to Tuscans than Anakin was. Well, yeah, but Anakin did have a specific reason to not be very nice to them, right?
He did. I mean, I can't blame Anakin.
I guess we're supposed to believe now. It is funny when you take something we've seen for so many decades and switch it up. Like, we've only seen Tusken Raiders dress one way. But here we got some mixing it up. I guess I guess the idea is when they go out on the hunt, they all put on those matching robes. But when they're back at their camp, they can switch. They can have distinct looks, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I felt that they were not so different from Mandalorians in that they clearly have customs and a hierarchy. It felt like the youngling was being kind of initiated or learning to become an adult Tusken Raider, and not dissimilar to the Jedi either.
Yeah, I agree. And interesting. Actually, I'll ask a question here that James Bunt asks, making me think of we're talking about Anakin and Jedi, which is, will Star Wars reckon with their depiction of slavery? Now, I'm not actually quite sure what you mean, James, because there's I think it's been depicted as negative, but at the same time, people have pointed out why didn't the Jedi do more? And it did seem like Jabba and those they had slave girls. Well, Leia was one sort of infamously. So I do think we saw here still that there was on Tatooine. We don't know if those were slaves, the shirtless people who came to Twi'lek, who came up to offer to wash their helmets. But I think maybe we'll just get a little bit more of a check-in on what is going on in this corner of the galaxy. It's obviously a delicate subject, but it is one that they directly brought up with Anakin. What do you think, Kim, as far as the slavery topic in Star Wars and what it even means that parts of the galaxy it's allowed and parts it's not?
Yeah, well, I think this series could be dealing with it a little bit. Perhaps that's part of Boba Fett's plan. Perhaps he wants to try and free the slaves that he can, establish a new way of being in Tatooine, clean up the criminal underworld as best as he can.
I think it's interesting that we have no idea where this show is going. So next week they could leave Tatooine and never come back. Right now, I assume we're going to be staying on Tatooine, which will be different from Mandalorian because I assume it'll be more, of a regular cast, of just we'll see these characters a little more and the world they live in and the different sort of sects of people. So I don't know if this show will specifically, to answer your question, James Bunt, I don't know if they're going to go specifically about the slavery aspect, but I think while they're never going to do a Star Wars show that's just people living their life, because you have to have action and adventure. I think maybe this show could give a little bit more of like what it's like day to day. What's Mos Espa all about?
Yeah.
Just
Although
just
he did mention at one point about going to Anchorhead and going off world to flee. So
have we seen Anchorhead visually? I don't think we have. So
maybe that's where we're headed. That'd be cool.
That's right. Albog Dov says, I believe we'll finally learn what McClunky is. I don't know if the world's ready for that.
Now, some things should remain a mystery.
I did notice that there was some Star Wars cursing going on here, because we heard Slimo and Hoodoo thrown out here. So
we just got demonetized in the Star Wars universe. You gotta be careful.
You just said the filthiest thing.
Dear.
I don't know about McClunky. Oh, by the way, I do want to mention that I did laugh at Jennifer Beals asking, would you like your Gamorreans hosed down and fed?
I felt so sorry for them.
Those Gamorreans, they're just trying to make a living themselves.
They were handy in that fight as well.
They were. Xenohour asked a question that I actually was wondering myself watching this premiere, which is, do you think we'll finally see unmasked Tuscan Raiders?
I do, yes. There was a lot of focus on their masked faces, and they were quite different, weren't they? The masks, and they almost had expressions, but it kind of drew you in to really kind of ask, well, what do they look like? And what does that kid look like? He's made this connection now with this kid, which surely we're going to see under the mask. We got to see Dinjar in space.
I think there's an obvious way to go there too. Yeah, because I think that if we're going to see him spending a lot of time with the Tuscans, which it seems like we will, I think they'll do that. And there's even place for him to have that connection himself, because he is a pseudo Mandalorian. He does not, there was that debate even came up on the show itself on the Mandalorian. Is Boba Fett really a Mandalorian? He certainly is not a traditionalist. He takes his mask off all the time, but now he's living with people that might remind him of the more hardcore Mandalorians. I think Xenohour, we'll probably get some unmasked Mandalorian. Tuscan Raider on this episode. What do you think? We haven't really talked about, just we only have two right now. The cast is two people. Like in the closing credits, no one else was even listed as a lead. But just Tamora Morrison and Ming-Na Wen, sort of being the anchors, not the anchor head of this show.
What do I think of just having two?
Oh, just the two of them in general, like sort of like both as actors and characters.
Right.
In this not first impression, we've already seen them play these characters, but the show being focused on them. Yeah, no, I thought
Ming-Na Wen was fantastic. It's like she's made for this role. I love her. It's kind of almost a role reversal, isn't it? These characters, we're used to Boba Fett being the kind of one that does the bidding, but is the badass, and now she's the one that just kind of wants to disintegrate people. She wants to. He has to remind her to bring these guys in alive. Just says Fennec alive.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. She wants to disintegrate the hell out of people.
She's badass, and I'm surprised I'm enjoying her so much when she doesn't say a lot really, but she's kind of like a guide to him as well, isn't she?
Yeah, it seems like she because he look, they're both neither of them are like big conversationalists, but he even seems more guarded than she is. So it seems like she's has right now, we presume he was spending a lot of time in the desert for the last 5 years. So she seems like a little bit more of the world than he is at this point. But I like them both a lot. They're both just like really cool presences. It's great to get to have him sort of at the center of this show. Has this iconic character that's always been like beloved but not really dimensionalized, and I think he does a really good job of that. He certainly, by him, has this gruff again, the I refuse to die thing. He plays that very well, and then she is just sort of like effortlessly cool and badass. And other people have mentioned this, but it's also just cool to have two people who are average around 60 years in age, like 120 years between them, and they're the center of this cool Star Wars show, which you wouldn't expect. But both, I don't think anyone is like, I don't buy them as these badass action heroes. I think we very much buy them.
He's also got really great teeth, and so I was thinking about this, and I thought, well, it's not beyond comprehension to think that he's made a lot of money as a bounty hunter. He probably has access to the finest dentists in the galaxy. So I'm going to go with that.
One day we will see a Star Wars dentist. I also like that he threw out the word mate, which I just like, it's like, why not? Like sometimes it comes up when people are like, this is it's funny to have this accent in Star Wars. And like, Star Wars is a huge, huge universe. So people can have all sorts of, slang from our world, and they can have every accent from our world. So why not? Any final thoughts here on the first episode, or what are you hoping to see most from this show as we go forward?
What am I hoping to see most? I want to see Cobb Vanth. I want to see him again. That's what I want most to see. I want to see more from Jennifer Beals. I hope she turns out to be integral to the plot. And I want to finally see at some point, maybe it's going to be like a Kingpin reveal, but the mayor. And I'm eager to see more from, anything of him.
I hope pretty quickly we get an idea of who is out to get him, just to give it that forward momentum. And I guess I didn't really answer about the other Star Wars characters questions. I don't think we're gonna need. We don't need a bunch. We're gonna get more though, to some extent. But I agree with you. Cobb Vanth would be a really cool one, because I don't need to see Din Djarin. It'd be cool, but I don't need to see him on this show. But I think there's a lot of room to bring in this sort of other criminal elements, familiar faces from the crime world, whether it be like Boxx. We got one of his people here, but get Boxx, or Cad Bane. A lot of people have mentioned. Who's a very much a missing element. We don't know what happened to Cad Bane from the Clone Wars. So that sort of stuff I think would be cool, kind of seated in. But I do hope, like you said, we have a little bit, is the mayor the one behind this hit, or is it someone else? I hope we kind of get an answer to that pretty quickly, just because I think the flashbacks can be a very cool element of the show. But I think it does put even more incentive for the present stuff to kind of give a little bit more forward momentum. But knock on wood. That will happen very shortly. Anyway, that is our thoughts on the first episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Thanks for joining us, guys, here. Hope you're all having a great holiday. Happy New Year. And we'll be back with another live episode on Monday. Until then, farewell.